Hey everyone, welcome to a week of Algos brought to you by Developer Students Clubs, Manipal University, Jaipur. A week of Algo focuses on making you all familiar with data structures such as arrays, stacks, queues from the real life applications. We'll be having some casual convos with our speakers, which will help you figure out how to land up a job at a top product based company such as Fang. We will give you tips on how to boost up your LinkedIn profile, and we'll also host some fun events such as quizzes. Today, we have with us Abhishek Vanjani, aka Code Till AC. Abhishek recently graduated from NSIT Delhi and is now working as an SDE at DirectEye. Previously, he was an SDE intern at Amazon India, and he is also a problem setter for HackerRank, CodeChef, HackerEarth, Metal, and more. His love for competitive programming and his problem solving skills enabled him to become a two-time ICPC regionalist. So please help me in welcoming Kotal AC, aka Abhishek Vanjani.
Hello guys, that was such a warm welcome. I guess you talked about everything that I did in last 4 years, so that was great. Basically, I am here to talk more about how I reached to my dream company and about I guess tax. So basically, we will begin with introduction about how was my journey in the college. So basically, I started with competitive programming in in first year. So I was keen into competitive programming since the beginning, and so for the first year, I did some basic C++ and studied about data structures and algorithms. So I got a grip over some basic data structure and algorithms in my first year, and then I was pretty much practicing on different platforms. At the end of first year, I was pretty bored with competitive programming, so I thought of trying some other stuff. So this is what I advise to everyone, that first year is something when you should explore rather than being focused on a specific thing. So many of us, I have seen many people on LinkedIn. They are focused since their first year, that they are very focused to get into their dream job, get a grip over data structures and algorithms. So first year is the time, I guess, is to explore. So you must explore whatever you like. You must explore about different tech stacks. So you must try ML, web development, Android development, and anything that interests you. So that time I gave up with competitive programming and I started off with web development. So in the summer vacations after the first year, I tried with some web development, but again I thought that this development is not my cup of tea. So I came back to competitive programming. Then I practiced on different sites. One thing that actually people who actually start with competitive programming think is that they give up very soon. So let me be very clear. So it was in my second year when I actually started solving problems on CodeChef, and my account was created in around 11th class. So it took me 3 years to solve my first problem on CodeChef. So nothing to be scared about. People usually start like competitive programming and jump to sites like CodeChef, and they think that this is something that they cannot do after seeing the first problem. So it is similar for everyone, and there is nothing to be scared of in this case. So it is common to everyone. So that's not a new thing. So yeah, I started off with doing CodeChef in my second year, and then came the internship season. So internship season is something like you would all like to hear how I prepared and all. So basically, my preparation was majorly I prepared for 3 months, around 3 months. So in the vacations only. So basically, my preparation comprised of studying, solving problems from sites like Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode. So this was the thing that I majorly did for the preparation. Other things that there were some mistakes that I made during my internships. So I would like to rather talk about the mistakes so that you guys don't make those mistakes. So basically, people usually leave some topics, like they just focus on data structures and algorithms, and leave many other important things that actually play a major role in internships and placements. So these include subjects like object oriented programming, operating system, and computer networks, etc. So these are some subjects that are actually neglected by most of the people. And other than this, there's one more thing. So there's a myth, I would rather say. So every company, if you see the process of any company for the internship as well as placement, the first step is a coding round followed by interviews. So the things that we like usually do on Geeks for Geeks or Lead Code, those are basically focused on the interviews rather than the coding round. So coding round is one thing that usually people skip during their preparation, and most of the people are actually screened out in the coding round itself. So this is one. These are few mistakes that people usually make, and um, so I always like whenever I talk about the internship journey, and I always talk about these things very specifically, because in my case I was not prepared with computer science fundamentals, basically the subjects like operating systems, object oriented programming, and computer networks, because of which I was rejected from first few companies. So that was the reason behind that. Despite of being good at data structures and algorithms, I was rejected from some major companies. And then I got my internship at Samsung, uh, basically because they didn't ask much of the computer science fundamentals, and they focused on competitive programming and data structures and algorithms, which was my strong point. So I studied about these subjects later on in order to avoid these mistakes in my placements. Later on, I was able to like I cracked a off-campus internship at Amazon, and then did my internship at Amazon, and got a full-time offer from companies like Flipkart, Amazon PPO, and DirectEye and Coordination. So currently, I am working with DirectEye. So this was majorly like about my journey to my dream company. Um, as it is a AMA session, I would like to interact with you guys, and I would love to like if you ask your doubts, that would be better. Like that would be much more beneficial rather than just me speaking.
Okay, Lakshya Malik, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Okay, first of all, quite interested now in competitive programming. I actually started competitive programming just like 2 months ago, and I started with Python. I've been going on these sites and solving questions as you said, and on LeetCode and Code Wars and HackerRank. The one thing that I'm facing a problem in is that so many times these questions that come up in competitive programming and I try to do them and I somehow can crack it. And when I see the solution, it's something like I was doing something called very popular problem two sum, and I was trying to solve it, and there was some concept that I did not know that was there. So that was basically what propelled me to find out about data structures and algorithms and try to learn about them. So I think the question that I'm trying to ask is, could you recommend any resources or courses or books that could basically allow me to get a hold of these algorithms and data structures that are beneficial for competitive programming and will basically allow me to get a head-on for questions on code wars and everything?
So one good resource that I would recommend is HackerEarth. So they have some excellent tutorials. So if you want to learn something from basics, so if you want to learn about basic data structures like stack, queues, basic algorithms, binary search, etc., or like basic stuff, so that's a pretty amazing site. They have some great tutorials. They have some practice problems that you can practice. With each practice problem, they have editorials attached. So that's a good site to practice. And secondly, there are some standard problems and standard things that you explore while you are solving problems. So even if you go through every algorithm and every data structure that is mentioned on HackerEarth, then also you will find something new, and you will find something like a new concept when you are solving problems in a contest. So that's the way you learn in competitive programming. So the learning never ends. Even if I like after solving problems for 4 years, I even now if I participate in a code forces contest, I get something new to learn. So that's how it works. So there will always be new data structures and algorithms, and there will be always new concepts that you like. Data structure and algorithm is same, but the concept and the way it is used in a problem is different. So that's something we learn when we solve more and more problems. So after getting a good grip over data structures and algorithms from Hacker Earth, you can go and participate in as many contests as possible, try to solve as many problems as possible, and then only you will learn and get to know new things and new problems. So that's the way you actually learn. So one thing here I would like to highlight is that when we are participating in a contest, so suppose I'm participating in a contest and I am able to solve two problems out of the six problems that were there, and I was stuck on the third problem. So we have a habit of like leaving the third problem. A contest is over and we leave the third problem. So this is not the way you learn. If you want to actually learn the things, if you want to actually grow in competitive programming, then you have to pick that third problem after the contest, read its editorial, know about the concept, and if you know that this concept is weak for me, then try to solve three four more problems of that topic. And this is how you actually learn, by reading editorials, by participating in contests. So this is how you learn from the problems that you solve.
Okay, so I think that your question was answered, Lakshay. Okay, moving on. Balaji, you can ask your question.
Yeah, hello sir, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Balaji. I'm final year student. Every time I'm practicing program or in data structures, sometimes I get tired because I can't able to solve that question. Go to see the solution every time, and sometimes I can't able to solve the question in optimized way. Every time I am going to in the brute force manner. Sometimes only I'm just think of some algorithms to solve that. Uh, can you give some tips to how to solve in optimized way, and how to approach the program, and how to not get stressed in by solving the program? So
See, this problem is actually, I guess, very common. Like most of us actually face this problem. We are not able to solve the problem, and we are not able to like get the optimal solution. So first thing that I would like to like highlight in this is the one positive thing is that you told that you are able to give the brute force solution. So one thing that I would like to tell you all is that brute force solution is very important when you are solving a problem. It may not give you the full score, or it may not help you get the optimal solution, but by solving the by solving the problem with a brute force solution, you are ensured that you have understood the problem. So that's the first step when you are approaching any problem. You must understand that. So brute force solution ensures that you know about the problem and you know a method to solve this problem. So that's also a kind of learning. I once I solved a problem, and I solved the brute force. I gave the brute force solution to that problem, and if I remember, it was a 60 to 70 line of code. If I talk about the optimal solution, and my solution was around 200 to 250 lines of code. That was the brute force solution. So the main thing that I am telling here is that while writing those 200 to 250 lines, I would have learned a lot. So that learning is important. So one thing is that brute force solution is important. If you are able to not think about the solution to the problem, always write the brute force solution and then move to the editorials in order move to the tutorials for the problem in order to see the optimal solution. So brute force solution is one thing that is very important. Second thing is, you told me that you get stressed about competitive programming and you get stressed while solving a problem. So that's, I guess, pretty common. Even I get stressed. I have been doing competitive programming since quite a time. There are problems in which I'm stuck for days, and there are times when I'm very stressed in that. So that's pretty normal. And only thing you can do is practice more and more. The more you practice, the better you become. So that's the only rule that you can follow. You see the editorial, that's not an issue, but you have to ensure that if you have seen an editorial, you know that concept. So the concept that is used in the problem, you know that now. So if you are solving another problem based on that concept, then you must not see the editorial. You must be able to solve because you have understood the concept. and not the problem itself. So that's what is important when you are seeing the editorials. Learn the concept and not the problem.
Wasim, you can ask your question now.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. My name is Wasim, and my question is moving from competitive programming to looking for internships and all. Like, what did you complete in that time to get prepared for internships? Like, how did you, build up your CV? Because when you're doing your competitive programming, you're all set on doing courses and stuff, like completing books based on data structures and algorithms, and seeing about the discrete mathematics or something like that. So, how did you jump from there to getting an internship? Like, what did you fill in that gap?
So first thing is competitive programming really helps when you are like preparing for your internships and placements. So I won't say that competitive programming will do everything that is required for the internships and placements, but it will help you think logically. So it was very helpful. I was able to clear majorly coding rounds that I sat for. So that was something that I completely owe to the competitive programming thing that I did for the 2 years. So that was one thing that was only possible because of competitive programming. Other things that are important. So if I talk about the big companies like Microsoft, Amazon, even Google, so the questions that are asked in their interviews are pretty standard. So they tend to repeat their problems. So that's pretty common. So they have a like set of 100 to 150 problems that they usually repeat. Like it's not always, but there is a pattern that they usually repeat their problems. So they are you might see so the best way you want to practice for the internships and placements would be reading the interview experiences and interview archives on Geeks for Geeks. So if my target is to crack Microsoft, then I will go to Geeks for Geeks and search for the interview archives of Microsoft. There I would find like 100 of archives that are there, interview experiences that are present. So I will try to solve those problems first. So this will actually help me in order to prepare for Microsoft. So what I would advise is you can pick like 10 to 12 your dream companies, 10 to 12 dream companies, and try to solve the interview experiences of those companies. So first step is always to like get a good grip over data structures and algorithms, get a grip over the standard problems. So interview experiences help in this thing. So the if you like there's a column in Geeks for Geeks, must do company questions. So yeah, I have shared this on my YouTube channel as well. So that column is one thing that I prepared. So there are around 250 questions in that column, and
Yeah.
if you like solve those questions, then you are prepared with the basic problems and the standard problems that you may face in like for any company. You will see that if I am solving the questions for Amazon and then I move to company like Microsoft, you will see that the questions are quite similar. The questions that are asked in Microsoft is similar to those that are asked in Amazon. So they are pretty standard problems. There are some standard problems that you must know before going for your internships and placements. So that is one resource that you can refer in order to like prepare for the internships and placements as far as interviews are concerned. Other things that I told was computer science fundamentals, that also plays a major role. And you must like you can refer to any online resource in order to study operating systems, computer networks, and object oriented programming. Object oriented programming and operating systems are two important things. Computer networks is like second priority, but these two are must do things that you like should like always do along with the data structures and algorithms. And one more thing you told about, you asked about CV. So building CV, I guess you asked something.
Yeah,
So
like how did you fill in that gap? Like normally you do courses and stuff, but like what should be there in that CV, like something like that, so that like the
so
bare minimum to apply, something
yeah,
like.
so if I talk about CV, so like I have made a separate video on like how to build a good CV on my YouTube channel as well. So if I talk about this in brief, so there are certain important sections that must be there in a CV. So first thing is education qualifications. If I talk about achievements, so if I was doing competitive programming, so majorly achievements that I had was the ranks that I've achieved on different competitive programming sites. Other achievements may include that if you are participating in some hackathons, if you are building some good projects, then you may add them to the achievement section. The other section that is important is projects. So if you are applying for internships, you must have at least one good project. By good project, I mean that if you are
Original,
like, yeah,
like
original.
your own original project. Okay.
Yeah, one good project, like this is what I advise. If you are like, basically you must be able to talk about the project in an interview for around 15 to 20 minutes. So that's the aim of a project. So you must, and if you are like, even if you're copying the project, you must know each and everything that is there.
Like when you work, like if I work in an open source project or something, then it wouldn't be my project, or if I work in a group or something.
You
That's
must
why
know
I asked the
whatever you have
question.
done. Basically
I get
you
it.
must know whatever you have done. It's not like no one would be checking your project in the interview. Even if you fake a project, that also does not matter to the interviewer. All that matters is how you are is able to present your project, how you are able to explain your project, how you are able to answer the questions that are asked. The interviewer may even ask you to write the code related to certain segment of your project. So my project was based on Huffman encoding. So he asked me to write the implementation of heaps. So he may even ask you to write a piece of code related to your project. So you must be well versed with the project. How you do it, that completely depends upon you. You can like fake a project. I have seen people fake the project, but they are good at it. They know each and everything that is related to it, because no one is seeing your project. But you must be like good enough to answer each and every question that is asked in an interview. So that's the main important point. And for the placements, you must like, it is good to have at least two. Even one will work, but at least two good projects in your resume. Anything else you like, if I
I
missed
have
something?
one more question, if that is allowed to ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Go ahead.
So when I was doing competitive programming, like I do it on Code Forces, and I found that I went on a roadblock, like a certain level of problems, like I couldn't solve them at all. Like it would take really long time and all. How do you approach said roadblocks?
Roadblocks as in like, you are not able to solve like first three problems, you're always able to solve, at the fourth problem you are not able to solve, something like that.
Like there are ratings of 1,000 and 1,200 rating problems in Code Forces. So when I try to solve them, I have to stay like really like 2 hours or 3 hours maybe with the problem, and then I can solve them. And it's not always possible that I actually stay with one problem for such a long time. And how do I break the ice so that I can go to the same level of solving 1,200 problems as my regular pace?
So basically you are talking about like, basically you are talking about speed stuff, right?
Like how to pace myself to solve harder problems.
Yeah, so basically, what I have learned is, the more you practice, the better you become. So when I started doing Code Forces, I was able to I participated in a contest and I was able to solve a single problem. I was few days back only. I was seeing my profile and was seeing my worst ranks. So I saw that the first contest that I participated in, I was able to solve a single problem only. Later on, and this was because of speed, because I was not able to like, go through the problem. I was not able to solve the problem in such quick time. People are solving on Code Forces. People are solving the problems in 2 to 3 minutes and even 1 minute. So I wasn't that good in speed. So I was able to solve the problem like in 15 to 20 minutes. That problem, uh, in my first contest. So later on, slowly I participated in more and more contests, and this is how I actually learned. So there are times when now even I am able to solve the problem in 4 to 5 minutes. So the more you practice, the better you become. So that's the only thing that I would say. The only way to like, increase your pace is to write the code. Few people, what they do is they read a problem and they see that this is a easy problem and we need not write the code for it. We know this problem. Suppose you are solving a standard problem like, finding the permutations. You know the code, you skip the problem and you move to the second problem. This I know, I need not solve this. So this is the mistake that usually like people make. It's better to write the code. When you write the code, you will get to know the complexities behind it. thinking this stuff and writing the code are two different things. When you actually write the code, the more you write, the more faster you become. That's like the rule of typing. The more you type, the better you become. So
Yeah.
the same thing applies. You will, when you're writing the code, you will actually analyze the code. You will actually see the hidden complexities that were there, that you are not able to think while just seeing the problem. So that is something which I would advise, like solve more and more problems and write those problems, code those problems.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the next question is from the chat box. I'll read it out for you, Abhishek. Uh, so, guy is asking that is it okay to not do internship in the last semester and prepare for companies by practicing competitive programming? Because
Oh,
that will.
yeah. So if you are able to get an internship, that's pretty good. Okay. So even I have even seen people who haven't done any internship and were able to crack some really good companies. One of my friend didn't get an internship and he was able to crack Adobe, and it was the fourth company in the on-campus process. So I have seen that. So that's pretty common. That's not an issue. But I would recommend you to, if you are able to get an internship, a paid internship maybe, so I will advise you to go for it, because internships actually help us to actually see how the skills that we are learning are actually applicable in the company atmosphere, how the work that we are like how the preparation that we are doing is applied when we actually talk about the company, and how we can contribute to such a like a company level project. So that's something that that you will learn when you go for an internship. So that's one kind of experience that you get when you like appear for an internship or prepare for an internship. And if like you're not able to get an internship, then uh, prepare well for the like placements and full-time offers. So that's not an issue. Not doing an internship won't like affect your placement journey, but having an internship will obviously help you in getting the exposure to the work that is done in the companies. So the projects that we work on in our college and the work that has been done in the companies are completely two different things. The development we do and the development that is done in the companies are different. They are like working at a higher level. So that's something which you get to learn when you work with them. So that's the experience that you get when you are appearing for the internships. But as far as like placement journey is concerned, so placement journey is usually not impacted by your internship. So some people say that they don't have any internship to write in their resume. Will they be able to get a placement? So yes, you will be able to get a placement. That's not an issue. Doing internship, and reason why I say to do internship is completely different.
Okay, so there is a follow-up question to this from me because I'm also finally a student. So I was thinking of doing both in ITSM, like doing an internship and simultaneously preparing for better companies while practicing competitive programming. So would you recommend not giving full attention to competitive programming, because I really want to try that, and but I don't know that if half-hearted effort, or like not half-hearted effort, not giving all your days to competitive programming would actually make you excel in it. So do you
Um,
think I can excel in C? Yeah.
Firstly, what I would like to say is, if you have less time, then competitive programming is not the thing that you will do. You will rather focus on like the core material that is required for the placement. So, if you are like focus, if you are have less having less time, then you will go for sites like Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode rather than Codeforces. Competitive programming obviously helps, but if you have less time, then the first priority should be solving the standard problems that are there on Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode, because most of the companies repeat these problems. If I talk about like if I talk about in terms of like 10 companies, so 7 companies will repeat the problems from Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode, and there would be 3 companies that will give you a problem that is completely out of the box. So you would obviously try to target those 70% of the companies rather than these 30% of the companies. So if you have less time, then you will divert your focus in this direction. And Yeah, most of the people, while doing their internships, do prepare for their placements because, in my college, 2 month internship was the thing that was allowed. So, not doing the coding for not preparing for the placements for the complete 2 months and focusing on internship was not possible. So, it was obviously required to prepare for the placement season as well. So, most of the people manage both the things, and in my case I wasn't able to like manage because of the work pressure that I had at Amazon. But usually people do try to manage both the things when they are in the internships, so they have to take the extra pressure of doing the work and like spending at least 1 to 2 hours daily coding and going through the problems that are there in GFG and lead code and preparing for the placements basically. So this is what I would like advise. Even if you are going for internship, do try to have a grip over the coding and do try to prepare for the placement because that is the ultimate goal.
Okay, so lead code and Geeks for Geeks should be the sites that I should be targeting along with my internship. Okay, yeah, I think that answers my question. Okay, so then moving on, Rishik, you can ask your question.
One thing that I would like to
Yeah,
add with this a small thing, do participate in contests that are held on lead code for everyone in general,
okay,
because that would be the thing. They actually simulate the atmosphere that is there in the coding rounds that you participate in internships and placements. So this is one of the most important thing that you must do.
okay,
Even if you are doing internship, you are not getting time to prepare, no issues. Every Saturday and Sunday participate in 2 contests each on lead code. That's
okay,
something very important according to me.
yeah. So everyone, I think that this is an advice that spans for everyone from the first year to last year. So I think we can all start doing this, and maybe we can organize some event related to this. Uh, okay, so moving on to the next question, Rishik, you can ask your question.
Uh, हेलो
Hello.
भैया लाइक मैं अभी फर्स्ट ईयर पे हूँ एंड आई एम स्टिल एक्सप्लोरिंग सो क्या कॉम्पिटिटिव कोडिंग के लिए यू शुड नो एवरी लैंग्वेज और यू शुड फोकस ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज
Single language, even I don't know, like I don't even know 2 languages. I am just focused on C++ and I am doing competitive programming in C++. I am learning Java now because it is used in my company. Before that I had no idea about even Java, which is the standard language, one of the standard language. So one language is more than sufficient.
ओके
But if you like, you should give wholehearted effort to that language. Like if you know C++, then you know everything that like if you are given with any problem and you know the logic, you must know C++ this well that you would be able to implement each and everything that is required to bring the logic that you are thinking in your mind to the code. So that's something important. You must know the language with that precision, that if you have a logic in your mind, then you can write the code for that.
ओके भैया थैंक यू
Okay, so Abhishek, there's this thing like there's an overwhelming response and people are asking a lot of questions. So do you want to cover them all right now or after the stacks maybe?
We will like I will brief about stacks and then we can continue the AMA session maybe. So stacks and queues are two data structures that like go hand in hand. So this is something that I will be covering together itself. So if I talk about so let's take an example. So if you are like standing in a like going to buy tickets for like movie. So the movie hall is empty right now. The ticket counter is empty right now. The first person goes to buy the ticket. Then the second person stands behind the first person, then the third person comes and stands behind the second person, and so on. And now when the ticket counter opens, the first person gets the ticket, he is out. Then second person is in the front and he gets the ticket, he goes out, and then the third person. So if you like analyze the pattern that I was talking about in this example is the person that came first went out first. That means the person who was standing in the front got the service first. So this order is basically called first in first out. So the person who is in first gets the service first and is out first. So this is basically queue, first in first out. The person standing in the front gets the service first and is out first. So that's basically queues. Now if I talk about stacks, so if you go in marriages and if you like see a pile of plates that is there, so suppose a waiter arranging those plates, so first he will keep the first plate, then on the top of the first plate he will keep the second plate, then on the top of it keep the third plate, and so on. Now like you are coming to get a plate for your food, so you will pick the plate that is present at the top. So the plate that the waiter kept the last, you are picking that plate and having a dinner. Then the next person will come and will pick the plate that is present at the top. So this is basically LIFO order, last in first out. So this is basically there are two orders, FIFO, first in first out, and LIFO, last in first out. So the plate that was put in the pile last was out first. So basically this order is called LIFO order. So this is the basic principle behind these stacks. So if I like, I will share my screen once in order to like describe in terms of example maybe. Yeah. So if I talk about FIFO, that is first, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Abhishek, it's visible.
Yeah. So if I talk about first in first out, so initially if I like there is a element 1 present in the queue. So this is basically queue. First in first out order is basically queue. Now the second element will come and will stand behind the first element. Then the third element will come and stand behind the second element. Now the element that actually came first, that is 1, will get its service and will move out of the queue, and the queue will become 2 and 3. And then 2 that was present in the front of the queue got the service and will move out of the queue. So this is the order which we actually follow in FIFO. And if I talk about LIFO, last in first out, which is basically followed in stacks. So first the waiter will put the first plate on the in the pile of plates. Then he will put the second plate. Then he will put this third plate. Now when you are coming for dinner, you will first pick the third plate because that is present at the top of the pile, and the pile of plates will become this. Now the other person that will come to get the plate will pick the second plate because they are picking from here, and the pile of plates will have a single plate, that is plate number 1. So this is the basic idea behind stacks and queues. First like I would like to have some questions if anyone have regarding the basic idea behind stacks and queues, because before after that only I will be like able to talk in terms of code. So is the basic idea behind stack and queues is clear? Yeah, so basically if I talk about queues, then queue is something that we actually like no, queue is something one person standing behind the other, then the third person, then the fourth person, and so on. And in stack, the last person gets the service first. So if like stack is completely opposite of queue. This is like this is the like order. So the last person will get the service first and will be first person to be out. And I guess stack of like piles of like dishes would be like the only example, I guess. You can also assume a pack of cards. So when you are keeping the cards on the table, you will first keep the first card, then second card, then third card, and so on. Now you have the pack of cards ready. When you are picking the cards, you will pick the card from the top. That is the card that was put in the pile last. So that is a stack order again. I
Yes.
hope that's clear. So basically, if I talk about the operations, now we will focus on stack majorly. So if I talk about the operations that are there in stack, so first operation is push operation. Push operation is basically insertion in the stack. So when you are like when the waiter was putting the dishes in the like in the tray, then that was push operation. Now the second operation is pop operation. When you are like taking the plate from the top of the stack, then it was a pop operation or the deletion operation. The third operation is top. So yeah, top. So top is basically the plate that was present at the top. It will just tell you that. So in this case, the top will be 3. In this case, the top will be 2. Something like that. So I guess I will like move to writing a code that will implement a stack with the help of arrays, and we will try to implement these 3 operations. So basically I would be using C++. It's been quite long when I have coded C in C++, so please ignore the typos that I will be making. So basically the header file part is this line is called the header file. So basically if like currently we are implemented stack, so we already have an inbuilt stack that is there in mostly languages. So C++ also have an inbuilt stack which is referred using this. So instead of like coding when I'm like participating in a contest, then I won't be coding this operation and this operation every time I'm using stack. So this is something that is inbuilt, that is present. So there are numerous number of things that are there in this library that you can actually use. So if you want to sort an array, if you want to find square root of a number, if you want to like find n x raised to power n, so there are many such methods or many such functionalities that are already present in this library. So um, basically this library we include in order to like use them directly. So so that we need not write each and everything on our own. There are certain utilities that have been made so that they are present basically in this library. This namespace thing is like little complicated, so let's leave this. Basically this main method is something that is present in each and every C++ code. So this method is something that will basically the compiler will start evaluating your code from this method. So this is the thing that will run for the first time when you write when you compile your code. So this is the core thing that, so all the code logic that you will be writing comes here. So like this is all about like boilerplate code that I have written. Now now I'm making an array maybe of size 100. So basically array basically means a collection of number of entities. So if I want to save 100 values, 100 integer values, int means integer. So if I want to save 100 integer values, one way is to saving it like this: int a equal to 1. So a is a variable that has integer value 1, b equal to 2, c equal to 3. So I can make either make 100 variables like this, or I can directly make an array. So array is basically collection of 100 entities. So basically I made collection of 100 entities over here. So basically ARR 0 can hold a value, ARR 1 can hold a value. So basically this is what array means in general. Do you have any if anyone have any questions, you can like stop me and interrupt me and like ask.
Yes, I have a question regarding array.
Yeah.
So is array is a type of variable because you are storing some numbers in it?
Basically array is itself a data structure. The type is over here integer, so I'm storing integer variables in the array. So this is what type basically means. I am storing real numbers in this array. For example, I am storing strings is basically a sequence of characters, basically my name Abhishek. So that is a string, so I have storing 100 strings over here. So this is basically type: int, double, and string.
Okay.
So this basically tells about the data type. This is the name of the variable, and this notation is for the arrays.
Yeah, this is a sorted array or unsorted, like इसमें होता है जैसे Java में.
There are functions to sort the array. Like this is the function that you can use in order to sort an array. Initially the array won't be sorted.
Okay, bhaiya.
So basically this function is also part of this library that I was talking about. So this library has tons of functions that you can use directly. Even the stacks and queues, they have the stack and queue directly. But I won't be like using those because there is no point like directly using the function when you're not able to understand the functionality. So implementation is very important. So yeah, basically we have to design these three operations. We have to write the code in order to design three operations. So there would be a push operation, there will be a pop operation. Just a second. Yeah. So basically what I have done over here is I have made functions. So functions, we can break the problem into functions. So if I want to like perform the push operation, so there would be like 100 two to three, 4 lines of code which will go here. So whenever I want to perform a push operation, I won't be copying these 3 4 lines in the code. So if I have like I have some piece of code that I want to like use repetitively. I want to use this code in 10 places in my code. So one option is copying this to 10 places. Other option is putting the code into functions and calling this function. So this is basically to avoid the repetition of the code. So what I am passing in the function is I can pass some variables in the functions. So whatever I want to use in this function, I will just pass it over here. Suppose this is an array. If I want to push, so this is the way I will be calling this function in C++. So basically this means I will push 1 in the stack. Now I will push 2, referring to the above example. I will push 2 in the array. I will push 3 in the array. So basically I need not write the code that I will be writing over here again and again to use the push operation by making use of functions. So basically this is the concept of functions. Now I will be doing the pop operation, then pop operation, and then pop operation. So this is the basic thing that I was like talking over here. So now we are like moving to the core complexity, core logic for the stacks. So stack has a push operation. So push is always there at the end of the stack. So if I see over here, 2 is added after 1, then 3 is added after 2. So I will maintain a variable over here, which will like be the end. I will basically maintain two or single variable, basically the end. So I will be whatever variable I will be adding, I would be adding them to the end. So I have added a variable x to the end of the array. Currently I have initialized the end variable as 0. So the indexing in an array is basically 0. So if I talk about this example, then in this ARR 0 equal to 1, ARR 1 equal to 2, ARR 2 equal to 3. So basically the first element is basically at 0 index, the second element is at first index, and third element is at second index. So the counting basically in like most of the languages, the counting starts from 0 and not from 1. So that's why I have initialized this to 0 and I've added the variable x at the end of the array. Now I have updated the end variable. So if I like so when I have done this, so 1 will be added to ARR0. ARR0 is equal to 1, and then n plus plus will happen. N plus plus is basically this thing. Just a second. Basically now n will become 1. Now when I will be adding 2, then I will be adding 2 at index end, which was 1 in the previous iteration, and this will become this. So is this idea basically clear? After this, the array will have something, array will be something like this. After this function call, the array will be something like this. After this function call, the array will be something like this, which we actually tried, which we were actually trying to achieve. So is this idea clear?
It's clear. It's
Cool.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
basically,
okay. There is a doubt. Sorry. There is a
yeah.
doubt. Akshat, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir, I just wanted to ask that we initialize the variable and at line 30, and so is it a global variable? And when we are changing the states of n is equal to n plus 1, so won't it change the will it change the global variable, or will it create a local variable and then change it?
It will affect the global variable. Basically, this variable will be the thing that will be updated because over here I haven't created a local variable. If I would have created a local variable over here, then it would have updated the local variable instead of the global variable. Because there is no local variable present in this function, it will be reaching out to the global variable and try to update that.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Okay, cool. So yeah, now we will be talking about the pop operation. So in pop operation, if you see, the 3 was the first element that was removed from the stack. So if I like, we will just um, basically this is the thing that will be returning from the function. So functions have a capability that they can perform some piece of code and they can return the result. So I am returning an integer over here. So basically now in pop operation, I will be printing the element that is returned or that is basically removed. So the elements are removed from the last element, that is the end. So basically we have the end variable, and what we can do is we can save the um, we can save just a second, yeah, we can just update the end variable as n minus 1, and we can save the value of the end variable over here, and we can return just a second, return the this variable. So if I talk about this, if I talk about this array now, the if I talk about the first push pop operation, now the array was basically 1, 2, and 3, and at this point the end variable was yes 4. No, end variable was 3. So when I call the pop operation for the first time, then basically n will change to n minus 1 and will become 2, and I will be saving temp as error of 2, which was basically equal to 3, and I will be removing I will be returning 3. So this function will basically print 3 for me. So I have removed 3 that was present at the end of the stack using this piece of code. When this will be called again, n will become n equal to n minus 1, which is 1 now. Temp will become error of 1, which is equal to 2 now, and 2 will be the thing or the element that would be returned from the stack, and similarly 1 in the next iteration. So obviously we will have some like edge conditions, and this is not the proper code that I'm writing. So there would be edge conditions over here, like if end is less than 0, then basically after performing 3 pop operations, if I perform the 4th pop operation and array contains of only 3 elements, so this will basically create an error. So we will have to handle this condition, like if end goes to negative, then we need to handle this thing as well. Even I guess over here. So yeah, that's like a rough pop operation and a rough push operation that I have written. So was the pop operation clear? Like if you have any doubts, you can ask, because I'm like done with the basic logic of the stack. So we have just implemented a rough stack.
Yes, it was clear.
So the top operation was basically to print 3, which I have already returned in the pop operation itself. So that operation is also covered. So all these 3 things are basically covered in this code roughly.
Okay, so everyone, I would really recommend, as Abhishek explained each step and wrote the code. I hope that you also wrote the code along with him, and I would recommend compiling it and testing it for on your own, so that you and maybe play around with it a bit. right? I guess you'll get a better idea. Then if you want us to cover like anything else in that you have in specific related to stacks, so you can ask your doubts or anything related to stacks.
Basically, I'm removing the explanation part. I guess the code is almost.
Okay, so everyone, what Abhishek is doing right now is known as debugging. So this is a term that you will get acquainted to soon enough.
Basically, the cout that I am writing over here is for printing the result that is returned by the function, and this endl is basically printing a new line, basically moving to the next line, so the output is clear. Yeah, so if we see the output over here, first the third element yeah, this is queues, this is stack. So first the third element is removed, then the second element is removed, then the first element is removed, then I have printed a -1, which basically denotes that there is no element present in the stack and the stack is empty. So this is the example of the, yeah, I guess this explains the things. So the output is completely as we talked about in the example. Anything that is like unclear in the final code that we have written, because this is the working code that I wrote. So if
Yeah.
anything is unclear, you can like
Yeah.
ask.
So Lija Alex has asked a question which is very interesting because I know that this will work properly. But her question is that why haven't we deleted the last element while doing the pop operation from the array? So I think that because Lija, we are like moving the last to one index prior of what it actually was, and then next time when we push, it will automatically rewrite the object that was there. I hope that answers it. Otherwise, Abhishek can also like explain it in detail if you want.
Yeah, basically, to like exactly what like you said, if I do a push operation over here, it will rewrite. Like, let's
Yeah.
run it and see. Yeah. So if you see now, after this operation, the array will become 1, 2, and 4. So this is what we do in the arrays. We have the facility of rewriting this stuff. So if earlier at last at error 2 we had actually 3. Now if I do error 2 equal to 4, then 4 will overwrite 3. So the overwriting stuff does the magic for us. So there's another concept called linked list. So if you will be using linked list in order to like implement stacks, then you would be actually seeing the deletion being done. So that's another thing. Basically, in order to implement these two data structures, queues and stacks, you have two ways. Either you do it using arrays or you do it using linked list. So in linked list concept, you will actually see the deletion being done. But over here, arrays does the magic for us. So yeah, you can maybe like ask you if you have any doubts, you can like we can cover them and like end this maybe. If
Okay.
anyone have any doubts, we can continue the AMA session.
So Akshit has a doubt. Akshit, go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for the AMA session. I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask. The first of all is what kind of mathematical background do I need, if I need any? Because I'm not really good at mathematics, and I was wondering if I should take a mathematical course first before continuing on my journey to data structures and algorithms.
No, I guess no need to have a specific mathematics course for that. I guess in order to like get familiar with the basics of the maths that is used, again, HackerEarth is an amazing site. you can refer to the concepts that are being used over there. So you will find some combinatorics, you will find some ways to find the prime numbers over there, you will find some mathematical functions that are useful in in competitive programming. So these are some things that you will actually find. So once you go to the topics that are there and you get familiar with the basics, then you would be having the idea of what type of maths is used in competitive programming, and then you can like try to master the specific field that you are actually weak at, rather than taking a specific mathematics course. So that would be like a better solution. First, get to know the things that are actually required in competitive programming. Then only like focus on the things that you are weak. That is a weak point for you. That would actually help you.
Okay, so another question that I have is, what were your expectations before the internship, and what kind of experiences did you have after the internship? So, what did you think what your role will be, and what kind of role were you assigned during the internship?
Okay, so you're talking about my internship, like the journey, like about how was my experience as internship at Amazon.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, before going to internship, as I told, I was completely into competitive programming and I had no development background. So I didn't even had a good project, if I would say. Like I had some basic projects, but there was nothing I can actually call it as a good project. So that was something that I lacked, and therefore I always say that you should have at least one good project during the internships for the internship interviews. So basically, I was completely into competitive programming, and when I entered Amazon, so the role was completely based on development, and I was completely new to development stuff. So GitHub, it's something that everyone uses. If like you are a developer, then you know GitHub. So this was something that I didn't knew. So there were many things that I got to learn at Amazon. It was complete learning experience because I was new to many things. I didn't knew about Java, so I was like asked to code in Java over there because the team was using Java. Also, to my surprise, during the first task or the first project that I was doing, I actually used the concept of operating systems and the deadlock thing. If you have would have studied the deadlock and the concurrency issues that we study in operating system, so that was actually used in one of the solving one of the problems at Amazon. So I was quite surprised how a theoretical thing that we learned can be actually used in practical concepts in a company as big as running company as big as Amazon. So I was quite surprised in that. Another thing that actually surprised me while achieving the task at Amazon was the third task that was assigned to me during my internship was completely based on data structures and algorithms. So it was familiar to a standard problem that we usually solve, which is basically evaluation of the post-week operation using stacks. So that's one of the standard questions again based on stacks. So that was the logic that I actually used in order to achieve my task. So I was quite surprised how the theoretical knowledge and the data structures and competitive programming that we did was somehow useful in the development and somehow useful in solving real world problems. So that was pretty much about my experience. What I would advise, what I would learned about from my internship was you must have done some sort of development before like going for an internship. That would obviously help you. You must know the basics because you cannot like go ahead and ask doubts or like small things. So it's better to have your basics done before going for the internship. You must have some development background. You must have some sort of idea of what development basically means in order before going for an internship. So that was one mistake that I made, and I would advise like spend like at least 1 month to do some sort of development so that you are familiar with that.
Just a last question, sir, and that would be like you said that you were proficient in C++, but you were asked to code in Java. So, how did you adjust to new programming language? And since we all know that Java is a heavily object-oriented language, and then we have assess modifiers and such, which are quite not present in C++. So, how did you accommodate the change?
So yeah, that was actually little like that was not that confusing because I was not asked to write the code from scratch. So I wasn't given a empty page to write the code. There was a package. There was things that were actually being made in the team. There were things that they were working on, and I was asked to write a part of it. I was asked to complete things. I was asked to do contribute to the things, existing things. So we are like usually not like the companies that we join are in a state that they have something written. That's why they are company. They have a code base that you can refer to. So seeing things and learning from the things actually helped me in order to make a transition from C++ to Java. And yes, Java is quite object oriented language, but yeah, it's sometimes it's difficult because from if I talk about now also, I coded in C++ during like coding these tags, and I haven't coded in C++ since past 3 months. So that's why you observed the syntax error that I had. So since 3 months I am like completely into Android development and Java. So I haven't coded in C++. So initially there are issues, but you get familiar with the languages. If you know a single language and you have control over a single language, then you can make a transition and you get familiar to different languages.
Sir, just I am quite of a Python guy. I usually code in Python. So when I just adjusted to another language, I tried Java, I tried C++. So I observed that there were quite quirks and there were features that were specific to that language. So I was having quite trouble adjusting to this. Thank you for your recommendations and advice, sir.
Yeah, if I talk about Python, then Python offers us some great functionalities that actually are absent in C and C++ and Java as well. So that's why if someone makes transition from Python specifically, then it's little difficult. But if you are a C++ or a Java background person, then you can easily like migrate to other languages. I faced if I talk about Python, I faced some issues while coding in Python. So Python is little like deviated from C++ and Java, but over time you can like master that as well. It does not take, if you like start coding in that, you will like be acquainted with the language.
Thank you so much, sir, for your advice.
Okay. Now moving on, Samita, you can ask a question.
So, like, I just have a couple of questions to be asked. Like, my first question is, like, when you refer to object-oriented programming, which language do you actually prefer when we like think about companies? Like, we have many object-oriented programming. In that, which do you think most companies use them in their?
Java is, I guess, the most common language that is used in most of the companies. But if you are as a fresher, if you're applying, then even I like got a job with C++. So I was good at C++ and I was able to like crack the interviews and get a job. So language specific, so there are companies that have the language specific and skills specific interviews. So if you are like thinking in that perspective, then Java would be a language that I would prefer. So I like in my case I chose C++ because I was like coding in C++ since 11th. So I was like not ready to switch. So I continue to work in that. So if you are like starting fresh and you want to learn a language, then Java would be a good option because in most of the companies you will get to learn Java.
So generally, people say that object-oriented programs are generally used in the company's operation work.
Yeah.
Don't you see much in the like big companies? C language is not used.
C languages I guess never used because C++ is a transition from C. So C is something that is not usually used because C++ has some features over C. C I guess is not even an object-oriented language. They just have structures. In C++, we actually have the object-oriented things like classes, objects, abstraction, and other concepts. So C++ is something that you may find in being used in some of the companies, but C is not usually used.
So, like, how many minimum languages should we know for attending an interview?
I guess one language will be enough if you have mastered that language. In most of the companies, there are some companies and startups that actually hire people from a specific skill. So if they might be hiring an Android developer specifically, they might be hiring a web developer specifically, then you need to know those specific skills in order to apply for those roles. But in general, if I talk about majorly companies, they hire for general profiles, and for them a single language is more than sufficient.
Sir, apart from the programming language, are there any specific subjects which we have to concentrate for the companies to get into them?
As I said earlier as well, so some of the important subjects may include operating systems, object-oriented programming, and computer networks. So these are three things that you may face in an interview. Another topic that like comes at the second priority is the system design. So that is something that you can also prepare before the interviews.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Mohsin, you can ask your question now.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I learned and asked my seniors that most of the product-based companies have the coding round and have the questions on DP problems. So can you tell me from where to start for dynamic programming?
Firstly, the thing that you heard is not really true. The major like many companies, like I have had the coding rounds. I have appeared in the coding rounds for around 20 or 25 plus companies, product-based companies. So I like disagree with this point that majority top product-based companies have DP in their coding rounds. So like for giving an example, most of the questions in Samsung and Microsoft's coding round were based on trees, standard trees and linked list problems without any DP. So yeah, so the questions may come from any topic, not just like DP. There might be maybe string related questions. DP is like something a one question of DP you may find in each and every coding round, but it's not compulsory. And again, learning DP is a tough thing because DP is like a thing that takes time to master. Firstly, what I would be recommending is trying to solve basic standard problems that are there on Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode for dynamic programming. So this will basically help you have a strong base of dynamic programming. So you will get to learn about dynamic 1D DP, 2D DP, and the basic problems like knapsack problem, coin change problem, etc. So these are some well-known problems in while you are like studying dynamic programming. So this will help you get a good grip over dynamic programming, and then you can like try your hands on dynamic programming problems that are asked in sites like Codeforces, etc. So first thing would be learning the concept from some good tutorial or a video, and then trying the problems that are present on Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode.
Okay, thank you.
So first of all, I would like to really thank you, Abhishek, for joining us. And I think this was a very informative session. In fact, I also learned a lot of things being a final year student. So I know how to approach my last semester. And I hope that everyone did. So I would like to extend you a big thanks for that. And I would also like to thank the whole DSC team for organizing this event and the attendees for being so patient and like you asked your questions nicely. And really, once again, really, we really appreciate you taking out some time from your schedule, Abhishek, to help us and like guide us.
No issues. Thank you. It was amazing talking to like you guys. Thank you.
So we have created a short quiz for you all just to test your understandings of the concept and ensure that the awesome content delivered in this session gets absorbed effectively. And do remember that each question will be having a 15 seconds timer associated with it. Okay, so all you have to do is just visit this website slido.com and enter the code, and after that you all can start doing the quiz. Here you go, the first question. Do remember guys, there is a timer associated. Time up. Okay, let's see the answer. linear. Great. Okay, 69%. Quite good. Let's go to the next question. Quite easy peasy, a true false type. Okay, a whooping 85%. Let's see the answer. True. Great, guys, great. Let's move ahead. Okay, a tricky one. Hope you all are reading the questions carefully. Okay, time up, guys. Let's see the answer. Okay, foot. That's correct. And let's have a view over the leaderboard. Okay, Akshit Agarwal. Great, Akshit. Oh, okay. I can see 5 people having almost a tie. Great, guys. Great. You all can beat each other. Just keep going. And let's move ahead. Ten seconds. Okay, time up. Okay, so the correct answer is yes, LIFO, last in, first out. That's correct. Next question. Thanks to Abhishek, I guess the quiz seems to be quite easy after his talk. Yes, I guess most of you have correctly guessed it. Yes, push. Push is the right answer. Another one. Okay. And let's view the answer. Yes, vehicles on a tall tax bridge. Why? Because it's a stack, it's a queue, it's an application of a queue, not a stack. And we have the leaderboard. Okay, I can see a lot of people having a tie. Great going, Akshit. That's great. Mohsin, Lisa, great, guys. And for the rest of the people, we still have some questions left, so you can all compete with them. Next question. Okay, 5 seconds. Time up. And the correct answer. Yes, peak. What peak does is basically returns the top element of the stack without removing it. It's just like you are peeking the top of the stack. Okay, next question. An easy one again. Oh, great, guys, great. I can see a lot of you have learned a lot from the session itself. Yes, push. No, sorry, pop. Pop is the answer. Next. A tough one. Be careful, guys. And yep, time up. Okay, I can see 47% score. Oh, great, great, great. Nice. And the last question of the quiz, guys, come on. Again, a true false. 5 seconds. And here you go. Let's see the answer. False. Yes, the deletion and insertion cannot take place at both the ends, only at one end in stack. So it's a false. And final view at the leaderboard. So drum rolls. Yes, we have a clear winner, Akshit Agarwal. Hey Akshit, congratulations for scoring perfect 10 out of 10. I'm really glad that you scored so well, and I hope all of you learned something from the event. And for the other people who couldn't make it to the leaderboard, don't get disheartened, guys. It's not only just the first quiz. We all have a lot of quizzes and other interactive sessions planned up for you all, and hopefully we will be having a codathon in the end. So don't worry, you will get a lot of chances to showcase your talent. And handing over to you, Abhishek.
Congratulations, Akshit, and thank you all for being such an amazing audience. We hope to see you tomorrow, wherein we'll be having Prerit Pathak with us, who will be talking about puzzles and programming using arrays. Good night, everybody.